everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and here in this playlist we are talking about a full stack mastery. And in the initial videos we are covering about how to build the APIs. So we are using Express.js with simple JavaScript, then Express TypeScript, then Express TypeScript with the MongoDB, and then we can just use Node.js TypeScript and we will build the APIs, and then we will add the flavor of either React and Next.js and build some of the full stack, the platform, full stack, MERN stack, mean stack, or these kind of full stack applications we are going to add in the same playlist. So it's going to be very beneficial for those who are looking for learning full stack development. Some people who are good at front-end development wants to learn how to build the APIs, and people who are already good at APIs wants to learn the React or these frameworks and building the components and all. So we have already started. I already covered 2 videos. In the last video we covered how to baseline this repository using PNPM and NX. Now I will start creating these applications, like simply we are going to use Express.js, okay, and we are just going to get started by creating a simple quick and dirty Express.js application and build the APIs with that. Okay, so here we need to install the dependencies which we need. So I will start adding them. PNPM add. So we are talking about Express.js, so here we will add Express body parser. I will not be talking about very basics of the Node.js. I will just talk about the API development. JSON web token. I'm just installing whatever the dependencies I'm going to need. So I'm just going to build a simple APIs which will be simply how to do a simple authentication, right? So I will just need to do PNPM init. That gives me this package JSON, and then I can add all these dependencies. So you can see I have added these five dependencies. Mongoose for the database, JSON web token. Once you do the login, I should be able to return you the token. Express.js is a Node.js web framework, right? Node.js API framework. Body parser to extract the data from the request body, and the big grep.js to hash the password values, because we are going to build some authentication platform. So if I talk about like what we are building here, so we already discussed about these things. I will just cover them. So this is the monorepo setup we already have, and I'm talking about this particular application. This is, we are using simple Express.js. So here we are using Express.js with now other dependencies. Obviously you need Mongoose to deal with the database, JSON web token to return the token once user is logs in, right? Body parser and all. If you want to just do a slight look on Express.js, you can spend some time here, like how we are because this was popular, this is still popular, how we build the APIs. Okay, and we just need to worry about this is the Express. You can create the Node.js APIs using HTTP server also, but then you end up writing lots of code, right? Here you can see here we are creating a simple Express instance. I'm just talking about this just to get started so everybody is on the same page. Here this is how we require the Express. Create the instance of Express, then we start writing the routes, app.get, app.put, app.post, app.delete, app.patch, because using app instance, this provides all these methods to create, and here we can just create a simple HTTP server. So if I just copy this and try to put in my code, so here is, this is what we are talking about, source, and I will just create a index.js file, and here I will add all the dependencies. This is a simple code I have written. I mean, this code everybody has seen this, and if you already aware about this, then you can skip this video. This is just a simple Express app. What it is doing here, you can just define the multiple routes, app.get, put, post, delete, right? So here I'm just saying, okay, give me the ID, app.put, give me the ID which you want to delete, update the resource, and then there is app.delete. So I'm just adding a simple CRUD operation, right? And I'm writing these simple APIs. So Express is just providing us the app instance on that. Either we can use the Express router or this app instance to build the APIs. Get put post on this / resource. Then understand again, you thought, okay, I need to also handle all these resources. Okay, users, give me all the users, give me that particular user, because we are writing a REST API. So users is the resource here, users. Then you thought about, okay, I need to add a couple of more APIs on the users. I want to fetch the courses. So I want to fetch the courses for this particular user. So obviously you need to pass, okay, give me all the courses of this user. So your resource URL will be users ID and the courses. And here, if you want to get a particular course, then you will write something like this. Okay, give me the course of this particular user ID, where course ID is this. Similarly, you can do the put, you can do the delete. So I mean, Express is a framework to write the APIs, but also we need to worry about, okay, how we are doing the resource naming, right? Here, users, give me this particular user, and from this user there are some courses. I want to delete this particular course. Okay, and when you run this, you would be able to access all these APIs. So this is how we just create a simple Express app and write a quick and dirty APIs. I mean, obviously we should not be doing this. There is a Express generator also there, which gives you simple skeleton. I mean, it's not like we are going to write code in just one file. You can just use Express generator that will give you app.js, all the routes where you can define all your API routes, user APIs, user courses APIs, and you can also write some handlers which are rendering the templates. I will not go into this detail because obviously you already know all these things. I'm not talking about Express, how to work with Express. Okay, so that is Express web framework we are using in our code. So what we are going to do, we are using this Express and then body parser to extract the payload coming in the request body, JSON web token to create a token based on payload and the secret key. Mongoose is a ODM for the MongoDB to query the MongoDB database. Okay, so let's get started. What we are going to do, we just create a simple APIs, login and the register API, and let's see how we are doing it. So you will understand, okay, this is how Express works, this is how you build the APIs, so that later you should be able to add a TypeScript and the proper folder structure, I mean, we need to build a production ready application, not by just writing whole the code in the single file. You adopt a proper structure. There we can write a controller, services, models, middlewares, all these things, because in Express.js, its concept is same. What all things you can do is you can create a, so this is app.js or index.js is your main file. After that you can do lots of things. What you can do is you will be creating routes, middlewares, right, controllers, services. You can adopt a simple MVC style of writing the code by putting a proper structure in the place, and then you can also have a libs, standard libraries which you are creating in the code that talks about, okay, logger. So inside lib you can have logger, monitoring tool, and logging, monitoring, tracing, and some custom middlewares, right? Authentication and authorization, all these things can be there inside a lib. Okay, so what we are doing, we are creating Express routes. We can also, Express routes will talk to the controller. So how this MVC works, I can use this particular section. So this is, you can see M model, this you can see view, this is your controller, right? I mean, by default using Express, you can also render the content from the, it can act as a server side rendered component. You can render the handlebar templates from the server side. So those are the view templates I'm talking about. I mean, when you are building just a simple REST APIs, you don't talk about it. Like, okay, you are just returning the data in the JSON, but you can return an even template also from the server side. So this is your model which deals with your MongoDB. Let me just move this to here to here. This is view, this is model. This deals with your database. Okay, so the view will send a request to the controller. Controller will just handle that with the model, and then it will return the data to the controller, and controller will return the data to the view. So view will not be accessing the model directly. Model means the data ORM logic, ODM logic. You will be just talking to the controllers. Here in our next Node.js code, Express code, these are API routes, right? These routes will access the services and the model layer, get the data, and these models can also return the view templates. So it's like a simple MVC folder structure you can also adopt with the Express app. Okay, so let's build a simple quick and dirty app, simple authentication. Okay, to build this, what all we need? We need to have simple APIs. I'm not going to create lots of folders here. Just index.js is also enough, and here I will just require Express. I will remove rest of all the other code. Here I'm just want to build a simple Express app. So here I will just add a body parser equal to require. I mean, this is a long time since I'm talking about Express, because now I think that if you are doing a JavaScript, you already know how to build the APIs. Okay, here we can also import Mongoose and require Mongoose, that is ODM tool, and then const JWT equal to require JSON web token. Okay, we are not going to write lots of files, so what I will do is I can just connect with a Mongoose here, mongoose.connect, and I will just pass the URL. Okay, here I will decide what is the URL, and I need to pass couple of options in the connections object that Mongoose is asking. So what we need to do is, we already have a Docker Compose YAML. Okay, I think I already have this. So I mean, if you are beginner to the Docker, you won't understand it, but Docker Compose YAML we have written, that is using this MongoDB container. And when I do Docker Compose up, what it will do is it will give me this MongoDB container. So you don't need to connect to some Mongo LTS URL from the remote, or you don't need to install the MongoDB on your local system. This container is enough. You can connect to this container on 27017 port, and you have access to the MongoDB database. Okay, you can also access the container, so little bit of Docker knowledge should be good. Here I can attach shell, and I can also try to see, this is the MongoDB container. You can see this is like a simple Docker container, simple Ubuntu machine you have created on your host machine. Okay, maybe can I try to, yes, I entered inside a Mongo console. You can see, and I think there is a command show DBs. Okay, then I can just use these commands to access the database. Okay, I think there is a way of creating a MongoDB database, that is like use test DB. Okay, it has created the collection. Then use users. Okay, it's not good. I can just use test DB dot users. I mean, there are some commands to create a collections. MongoDB is a NoSQL database. Here I'm just running the commands to access the database, and here you can also do show collections. That will give you all the collections which are there in the database. So currently we are using test DB. Okay, then you can just do show collection, or you can just use admin, and you can see there is only one collection. So there are some client tools available also, using which you can access the MongoDB database. I will also talk about that client, but this is only about how to access the MongoDB console, which is sitting in the container. You don't need to do much for that. So here we will pass the URL. Now what my URL looks like, I can just pass my database. I'm running it from the localhost 27017, and let's say here I'm just saying is a users DB, or appropriate name is user management DB, right? And this is accessing using 27017, and it is accessing through the container because the container is exposing 27017 port, so we can connect to that using localhost system, your laptop, and there is a container running, so there is a port mapping we already have. We can access that container using 27017. Whatever the port you are putting here, that port you can use to connect to the MongoDB. So this is how we connect a MongoDB. I got the Express instance, and now I can just write the APIs. Here I can just register some middleware. Okay, what is the directory for my path? Okay, like I want to create some static templates, so app.use. So there is a to render the static content like images and HTML files or handlebar templates, you can just specify what is your static directory, and here I can just say path.join from the current directory. You can just look into static folder. Okay, not in the current directory, we need to go one step back. So we are inside a index.js, so I can create a static folder here only. In that case, you don't need to do anything, you can just pass a static. So we are rendering the static content from here, and then you can also use app.use. I am using body parser as a middleware, so body parser.json. This will help me to extract the request body, because you are hitting a post APIs, patch APIs and all. So till now we are good. We have registered our API, registered all the middlewares. So if you have any other middleware, like, you can just use app.use and write your middleware function. So your middleware function takes 3 arguments: request, response, next, and these middlewares execute every time for all the requests. So this is like a custom middleware I have created. This middleware will be triggered on all the API routes. Okay, now I want to add some simple login API. So what I will do is app.post, because we want username password from the user, and here I can just use auth login. And what I'm expecting is I will just use async request response. I'm expecting that payload is coming from the front end, I mean from the request. And here I got the email and password we have, or we can use the destructuring request.body. That is better, I think. And from request.body I'm getting the username and the password. Let's say there is nothing like that. Okay, and we are doing a registration also, so we need to have a model, because what model will be doing is that model will store the users. Model is a representation of your MongoDB table. So here I will create a folder model, and inside that we can create a simple user collection, not table, because here we are talking about collections. We are using MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. User.js, we will require a mongoose on the top, and then we can define, okay, I'm using user schema equal to new mongoose M capital mongoose, and here you can pass your schema mongoose.schema, and how your schema looks like. So first you have to create a schema and then create a model for that schema. Const model mongoose.model, and here you pass, okay, what is the schema name you want to give? User schema, and you pass the user schema which you have created first. So schema is like what all attributes you need. So I want to have a username there in the collection, which is of type string. So this mongoose provides, because NoSQL is a unstructured collection, you can put anything, but here you can put some validations and some format and some structure which you want to have for your collection data. Required true, unique. Okay, I want to have a unique true, because I don't want to have a duplicate usernames. And then there is a password. Password should be a simple string, right? Required true. So this is how we are going to create a schema, and that schema can be used in the model, and then we will export this model. Module.exports, because we are writing JavaScript. Module.export model, that's it. So this is how we are creating model. This model we need to use in the login API to check the data, right? So here, how to access the model? We can just go to the top and just import const user equal to require, and just pass your model. So inside model I have a user that will give me the user model instance, and here we are talking about simple login API. So in the login API, what we are going to do first is we need to check if this particular username exists in our database or not. So how we can do it? We just need to play with simple mongoose commands. Await user dot. Okay, I mean it should automatically populate all these stuff. I can just do a pnpm install at the root. Okay, and then here what I'm doing is user dot find one. And this is the problem with the JavaScript projects. On the TypeScript projects, you always get autocomplete. So this is a user.findOne, and which mongoose version we are using? Mongoose 7.1. Okay, that has been upgraded a lot since I used last. And here we'll just look at some implementation examples. Okay, how we do the find, how we are doing the operations. So I will go to the documentations, and here we are creating a schema, and then how we are doing a query. So there are different mechanism, find one, find by ID and update and all. So this is, we are creating a schema, and then because it provides both the implementation, callback based implementations and async await. Right here we are writing async await. So here it talks about, okay, how you define your schema, which we have already done. Right, we are just creating a schema, and these are the different types. This is, okay, lots of mongoose definitions. This is how we are doing mongoose.connect, and it also has a TypeScript support, something like this. When we are writing TypeScript, we can create a type user, and that user we can pass to the schema. So that is like when we write a proper production ready application, there we are going to do. So these are the queries, these are the important ones, right? So we got the instance of model. We can do delete many, find by ID, find one, replace one, find update many. I mean, these are really nice helpers. And you can see the find one operation. So this is here you are passing query. Okay, and name.last is ghost, and it is actually find one, and what it is doing. So it is find each person with the last name matching ghost, selecting the name and occupation fields. So what it is doing is you are doing a find one. This is the matching criteria, and once you got the results, give me only these two properties from the collections. Okay, so this is how we are executing it. So we can do the find one. Here we are just using async await. That's the only difference. Okay, you can just do exec and then return the callback with the async await. Let's see how we are doing it. So we can simply do is a user.find one, pass the criteria, it will give you the user object. So coming back here, user.find1 by username. So what we are checking, do we have the username with this? So here, if user doesn't exist, what we need to do? We need to return. So how we can return? Response.json, response.status. That is also correct. So what we are saying, response.status 401 or bad request. So your credentials are not valid. So how you try to deal with this? Not unauthorized, we can just simply say is a bad request, and JSON. Here you can set a message. Invalid credentials passed or something like that. So if user is found, because here we are writing login, right? So you can see this is the autocomplete code, but here we are going to compare the password. But should we do it like this? First, what we are going to do is we can simply do it with because we are using bcrypt is equal. So we are using bcrypt. So bcrypt is actually used. So we should have written the register first. What it is doing is it will, when you are creating a user, what we are doing is we are just storing the bcrypt version, hash version of the password using bcrypt.js. And here we need to import a bcrypt in our dependencies on the top. And what we are doing is bcrypt.compare, because we need to compare both the passwords. Because there is a login, you can do comparing. We are already using await, so we can use compare. And this is the password you are passing. And then user also has a password in the database. And if this is true, I mean, both are equal, then we got what we need, right? We just need to generate the token using JWT. So here we are going to create a const token equal to jwt.sign. This autocomplete is really smart. And here I can just pass the ID, user._id. This is the ID we have for the user. And username you can pass user.username. Even you can send an email. I think there is a username and password, right? We don't have email. So these properties we are sending, and then jwt.sign, it takes payload, and second argument is the secret. So how I will use is process.env. And we can use we should at least use the .env module here, so that we can get the values from .env. So here you can create a .env, because this is the secret using which you are creating the token. So inside this we can just have, and we just need to get all the variables from this .env also into our code. So what we can do is we can use .env module, right? And then we can just do .env config, that will populate all the variables in the process.env. So this is how we will get the secret. And this is simple login. So once you do the login, what we can do is we are just generating a token. So once you have token available, what we can do is return response.json, status code is 200, sorry, response.status. And here we can send a JSON message which contains the token. So status okay. And we can just pass access, token is token. So this is the response we can return if these are equals. Otherwise, we already know what we need to send: invalid username, password, 400 invalid username or password. You should not tell the end user that your username is wrong or a password is wrong. One of them is wrong, user needs to correct. Okay, a simple API. So let's try to run this if it really works. So we can add a start command. We don't have much of the code, so I will just do something like this. Start quick and dirty node. Where is our root file? src index.js. How to run this? I hope everybody knows, right? npm run start, right? So we'll go to this application, or we are using nx console, that should also give me something. Okay, select workspace. Okay, I need to provide a proper scope also, so that we can use this in the package JSON. Scope is, let's say, here we can use TK Sharma, Simple Express, Auth app, and that I should see in the console. When I need to reload it, somehow it's not showing all the applications. Okay, so for now, how we do it, we can go to this directory cd apps express.js auth apis, and we can just do npm run start. Simple. And here we have index.js is running. So what we need to have MongoDB up and running. Let's say you are passing a wrong URL or something. So what is the error it is throwing us? Path is not defined. Okay, something we are missing. So I will try to import the path. That path variable is missing off from the top. So I can just do path equal to require path. That's it. So we added the path. I will try to restart or start again. We can use a node mode. Port is not defined. That is also correct. So here we can do is a process.env.port. A port is not specified. Start the API zone 3005. Now at least it will not throw error for the port. Something else. Port is not defined. Where is this port? Okay, I got it. Here also use the process.env.port, and we are getting it from here. So inside env I can say port is okay 3005. Here we are using 3005, so that's good. So what we need to do is we need to use a .env module. So let's explore it. .env. So .env module helps us to populate the data from your .env to .env config. So I will just add this .env in this repository. In this application we will do it. pnpm add. So I will just do pnpm add .env. Okay. And then you just need to load the config at the root. I mean, you can also print this. It will give you all the configurations from your code. I will go to the root, top of this, and if you try to run this again, same command, you can see your variables has been populated here. Whatever is in the process.env, even there are some system environment variables that are also here, and whatever the variable you set, okay, we set the port and the secret, right? So these values are here. Okay, so what we need to do is there is a Mongo connection error. Let's fix this, because I know I have seen this Mongo parse error when you are trying to connect to a particular database. So let's see this. So all these MongoDB connection options you don't need, like these, because that needs to be supported by your MongoDB container. So I will just remove them. We can just use new URL parser, and I can see my APIs are running. Initially, when you are learning and things, you can just use node mode. So when you change the code, automatically it will reload and it will restart your Node.js app. You don't need to cancel it again and then start the application again. Okay, so this is our Auth app. Now we can also access this Auth APIs. Let's first add the register API. Okay, let's build a simple register API. So this is app.post. We'll just copy this. I will keep it lower, and so we can see the whole view of the code. app.login. Similarly, I can just create another API that talks about API login, and then there is an API register that will also take a payload. So what payload will contain is username and the password. Password, we can create an alias for this is plain text password. So this is the plain text password we are getting from the UI. And we can use the validation libraries. For now, what we will do is, let's say if you are not passing the username and type of username is not string, type of username not equal to string, that means bad request, right? We can use this and I can say invalid payload. User will understand, okay, username is required and I'm not passing it correctly, so I need to go back and correct my stuff. So this is the password, or the type of this is not equal to string, then also I need to go back. Currently in the modern solutions we can use a class validator, Jod, all these libraries to validate all those things. You can also validate the length, you can type regex pattern and all, and here we will try to do it. So here we are doing try catch. I will remove the existing code which we already have. So what we need to do is, I will just create a user const response, and we can just use await user dot, this is a user model dot create, and you can pass both the things, username and the password. So for that, before that we can actually create a bcrypt version of the password. Const password equal to await bcrypt dot hash. This is the password, and you can just pass plain text password and pass the salt value, and you got the password. Now I got the hash version of the password. I can just pass the username and password. I'm safe. I created a user. So if user is created, then we can just send the response back, and here I can just return response dot status 201, because we are creating resource dot JSON message, okay, user has been created. Otherwise, let's say if there is any error comes while doing this stuff, because username is unique, so there can be an error thrown by MongoDB. You can see there is already error code. This is I think some plugin is doing it for me, and here I can just say, I mean, I don't want to see the AI and chatbots are writing the code without humans. Here we can just say response.json. So what is the error we can send here? Well, I can just send a 409, there is a conflict message. Resource or user already exists with this username. You can pass the username also, whatever you are passing. So this is in this case, otherwise we can just throw error. Okay, I can just send a response dot status 500 dot JSON dot send. That's it. I mean, in the average case, in the worst case, I will just return 500. So this is my simple register API. Now it's time to test it. I can just send the response object back. No, response contains the hash password. So let's try to do it something like this. We can send a user object. So here I can send ID response.id, and then username response.username. That's it. So now let's test it. So this is our simple API. Our API is running on 3005, you can see, and here I can try to pass the register, right? So I'm trying to create a user. Let's say user already exists with this username hello, or you can just send unprocessable entity user. We are not able to create a user. Instead of telling that user already exists, so we are sending a 409 conflict. That's correct. So here, let's say I'm creating a username with user1, and has been created. I can just try to do the login with this username and password, and I got the, you can see it is creating these tokens. So it's like a very simple basic auth implementation we have done. I mean, you might have already know, okay, this is how it works. It's not some biggie we have done, but the end-to-end Express app with the two different routes using bcrypt.js and a mongoose to read and write to the database. We can also look into the MongoDB collection, and I will talk about which client you need to access the MongoDB database. So we are already connecting to the MongoDB on this host. Here you can see we can just use this URL to connect to the MongoDB database. So either you do it from the container. Let's say if I try to do it from the container. So here is my container, attach shell, and I can just use Mongo, show DBs, and I can just use user management DB, right? And I can just show collections, and I think there is a operation db dot user schema dot find to read all the records. If I'm doing it correctly, it will return with the records. You can see these are the two records, right? But what happens is nobody wants to do it from the terminal. What we can do is we can use a client to see what are the records which has been inserted in this collection. Okay, so let's explore the client. I will just zoom in, zoom out, and here we can exit from the container. We can see that this is how the data is being stored in the MongoDB. So this is the tool I was talking about. It's a RoboMongo. Now it is a Robo 3T Studio. And when you install it and you create a new connection by clicking onto the plus, enter your URL, and this is how you can see the collection view and all sort of things. It's like a visual representation of your MongoDB collection. You can just look into all the collection records, collections, and all the columns and all the properties. So you can see this is the database, these are the collections, and inside a collection, because this is a JSON document, it will give you the whole description, and these are the methods which you can apply, right, in through this db dot collection name dot find, db dot collection name dot find one, and all these queries you can perform through the MongoDB using this RoboMongo client. Because MongoDB is already running on the container, we are connecting on 27017 port, and we are doing query. So you can just install it on your system, because here this is the client. You can install it and use it forever, and then you can just access these APIs. And so we have built a simple authentication API. We are going to build more complex APIs. Currently, this is a bare-bones structure. We are not following any standard API structure and all. We are just creating these simple folders. And inside a static, you can actually render the static HTML files also if you want. Let's say inside a static, if I want to just put an index.html, can I just do it? Then if I try to access the index.html here on the browser, so localhost 3005, yes, you can see we got the simple form, registration form, and this registration form is using the same registry API. I didn't write this code because there is no point of talking about it. It's a simple like Axios, username, password, and then I'm passing it, and it is using the same API register. Okay, it's auth register. Similarly, there is a login. I can just put the page. You can render the login page also. So it's a auth login. Let's try to see this. Okay, username is hello data, submit form. Something is undefined, I need to check. So I mean this is how it is creating the users. Okay, I mean this is how we can just dispatch a simple action. It's like a simple index.html, simple login.html, right? Login also, it will render this login form for us when you hit a login. And why that is happening? Because we are using this static pages middlewares. So that's why we put these static files inside our static folder, so that we can render those HTML files by putting the name on the URL. So this is like these HTMLs are rendered from the URL. So here I will just put demo hello or hello, and I will submit form. So you can see it is success. That's the only demo, right? These are the, here we are, this is how we are rendering the template, submitting the data, hitting the APIs, and then APIs will do rest of the things. We are submitting this form through the API request body. We are passing username and password, we are validating it, and we are just checking success. That's it. Okay, that's all about this simple demo example. Now let's build some complex examples after it.